Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great commentary. Um, I definitely really owe you guys this one, a black pill video, after so many politicos. Like I said numerous times now, I get that nobody likes them, but I didn't want to make a black pill video if I wasn't feeling it, and due to the gravity of the political situation, my heart wouldn't have been in any black pill stuff. I feel like things have only just now started to settle down, and I still want to do more black pill stuff. The thing is, there's always going to be something to talk about with politics. There's only so many black pill things you can say. So if, that being the case, again, I didn't want to force a black pill video if I wasn't feeling it. Earlier, in a video way back, a political video, so not a lot of people saw it, I had mentioned that I was going through, some kind of pretty close to a nervous breakdown regarding an issue in my personal life. That has, I haven't brought it up since. That has been mostly resolved for the better. It's not dealt with over with yet. It will be one way or the other in early mid-December. Then it will be completely finished, and hopefully that goes okay. I'm not too worried about it. Like I said, I think the worst is over, and I'd like to talk about it, but I really just can't. Um, the so, but yeah, once that's gone off, I think I'll feel a lot better. Like I said, I'm not too worried about it right now. I think the worst is over. Yeah. So anyway, though, but here's a black pill thing I've been thinking about for a while. I've been thinking about it a lot more recently. Really particularly in the last day or two. So thought this would be a good time to get back into the black pill stuff. Although this almost is, I call it black pill just because that's like almost, it might be more just general philosophy than black pill, but I think there is black pill elements to it. Or at least how I view the black pill. And that's just the whole idea of looking back on life and regrets in life. And because, I remember reading, on short cells, I guess an older guy, an old cell, was saying, when I say older, I mean like my age. And he might have even been a couple years younger than me. And he was telling like the younger guys, like you were saying, like they're all telling you like, oh, don't worry, you got plenty of time. I'm here to tell you, no, start panicking now. You got you don't have a lot of time and shit like that. And you know, especially even at the time when I saw it, I was thinking, well, I'm actually older than this guy, and that's not how I feel, and it's still not how I feel. But because the thing is, like, I remember hearing this myself when I was younger, that you're gonna get old and you're gonna look back with regret, on things choices you made, time you've wasted, stuff like that. So I'm 37, and it's not that I don't have regrets, because I absolutely do a lot. But here's the weird thing, the really strange thing, the thing that I wouldn't have expected, and I think most people wouldn't expect, is when I look back at regrets, they're almost all things that I regret the things that I did do. There's very few things that I didn't do that I regret. So it's not like, like I'm looking back like, oh, I really regret not going out for baseball in freshman year or shit like that. I wanted to start though with talking about some of the things that, like, when I look at the more, I don't know, regrets of actions not taken, those are pretty much all an issue of if I knew then what I know now. Like, when I was in middle school, well, not middle school, 8th grade, that was the last year of middle school. That year was largely lost to me due to problems with asthma. And that summer as well. And asthma really didn't get resolved until I got on a better treatment program at the beginning of 9th grade. So that's an issue of, I lost a lot of months of, when I was young there, at a I don't know what to say. Like, I mean, in hindsight, it doesn't matter, but at the time, it felt like a really big deal. I lost a lot of months there. That could have been resolved easier, if I had just known a more aggressive treatment program for my asthma. Now, why it took the idiot doctor so long to figure it out, I have no idea. But wasn't rocket science or anything. But that's one thing, so that's it. And what difference would that have made in the long run? Like whether I'd had those 8 months back or whatever? None. None. I mean, honestly, I might have been better off for being sick for all those years because I'm not sick for all those months because even though I didn't feel it at the time, it may have caused me to like learn some things and appreciate some other things. It really I lost nothing. But that's one thing. The other thing then, again, going back to high school, is of things that I would have taken is my in high school in my sophomore and my sophomore and junior years, pretty much the like over half of my sophomore year and pretty much my entire junior year, I had very serious sleep problems. This was related to, untreated depression. I didn't feel depressed per se. I did have some anxiety, but you don't necessarily have to feel depressed with depression. It can just manifest in physical symptoms. And for me, I couldn't sleep. I had really bad insomnia. And so I felt like, in a lot of ways, I lost like a year and a half. Not totally, but I sort of did. And, what I would have done differently is, well, I know what medications ended up getting me out of it. In fact, I wouldn't have even taken any medications at all because I feel like I feel like I really could have benefited just from, I know it wasn't big back then. We're talking about the like year 2000 here, but just a mindfulness meditation course. I really think that would have been enough to, because it was mild enough then that would have been enough to get me sleeping properly. Yeah, and again, I have to look, if it hadn't been for those things, what difference would it have made in the long run? Again, none. And it didn't really, I mean, other than that, I would have enjoyed that year and a half more. That's about it. But like, did it really make a difference? No, it didn't. But yeah, that's an issue of, again, that wasn't really like a mistake per se. I just didn't know. Like, I didn't know, my parents didn't know, my therapist didn't know like what medication was going to work for me, exactly what the problem is, stuff like that. Another thing is that when I did finally get the whole sleep thing taken care of in the early part of my senior year, I would have immediately, in hindsight, tried to start getting off the medication before I got as like hooked to it as I am now, although I'm on different stuff now, simply because I don't think it did, but there's a possibility that I was still growing at the time and it may have slowed down my growth. Now, I've done extensive research on this, and it sounds like in the late stages of growth, it has very minimal impact. And I was probably pretty much done growing anyway. I was like 17 and a half. But, just in case, maybe I would have squeezed out an extra centimeter. So that's the only thing that would have made really any difference. So yeah, I mean that's that. Oh, and then as for like in college, again, what things that I would have done differently? Probably really nothing in college. And then but when I got out of college, like now, I know I've mentioned this in a few videos that I'm in sales now. I bounced around doing a whole lot of different shit. I've tried, odd jobs, programming, stuff like that. That's really I guess if I'd still had gone down the programming path, I would have done it in a more streamlined way, in which case I probably would have found, a job and maybe would still be in the programming business now, although I certainly don't regret that I'm out, so I can't really say I regret that. However, I probably would have done is I would have gone into sales earlier. Not that I really like sales, but that's like the only monetizable skill I have is the ability to talk to people. Now, you guys can hear from my videos. You can tell that I'm not a natural salesman. Like, would you buy from me? Probably not. But you don't really need to be a natural salesman to make it in sales. The thing is, if you've got the right product and you know how to talk to people, they'll buy. You're not gonna kill it if you're not a good salesman, but you can survive, which is a lot better than I'm doing now. Like, at least I'm making some money now as compared to zero. And you'll make more money than you would working at CVS. Not saying it's for everybody, but I'm saying that that's one thing I can do is talk to people. So I guess that's the only real thing that I would have done differently that actually would make a difference. Like if I had started on my sales career at age 22, I would have, made some money. I'd have some money in the bank right now, and I'd be a lot further along in my career. And I'd be better at sales just because I would have been doing it for longer. So yeah, so I mean that's the real only, but the thing is how was I supposed to know that at age 22? I mean that's the only real regret that's actually made a difference. So when I'm looking back at regrets of things that I wish I had done differently, or things that things that I wish that I had done as opposed to things that I hadn't done. The only thing that's made any difference is sales, and is starting sales earlier. And even then, the end result would be me ending at the exact same spot that I am right now. And then the one last thing I would mention is what I know about weightlifting. I think the way that I tried to pursue weightlifting when I was young was not very effective, using relatively heavy weights, which doesn't work. I don't think it works for some guys, but I think for some guys it works for some guys with delicate bone structures. But generally speaking, if you have a delicate bone structure, you're not going to respond as well to heavy weight training. At least that wasn't my experience. I started making gains when I switched to lighter weights, and it wasn't you can see I didn't become Arnold or anything. Although right now I'm not lifting, but even when I am lifting with lighter weights, it doesn't, but at least I would have made some gains. You know what I mean? As opposed to the zero gains I made for most of my career. I made some strength gains, but no size gains, and so again, though, I just didn't know any better. And again, what would the end result have been? No, I'd be exactly where I am now. I didn't really lose anything, except I guess some years when I cared more about it, I would have maybe been a little bit bigger. But I mean, but who gives a shit? It just, all this stuff doesn't matter. So no, that's the real weird thing, about looking back. With how are we doing for time? About looking back, you'd think that at age 37, that there would be a lot of stuff that I would have done differently, not that I wouldn't think I want to say I do have regrets, but I'm saying things that I regret not doing. You think that I would have a lot more of that, and I really don't. And the ones that I do have, they're all completely understandable mistakes that I would have made. They weren't really bad decision making per se. They were just me not having access to the right information. So, and some of them like the weightlifting thing, that wasn't research. I just kind of figured it out for myself based on my own experiences. So, I mean, the research all says, no, you got to lift heavy. So, I don't know. But yeah, but I do have, when I look back on with regrets, they're all things that I did do, which is really weird. So, some things that I would have done differently is, I'm not saying that my parents or teachers were innocent or anything like that. I didn't have to put up with a whole ton of bullshit from them, because I did. But it doesn't mean that I was always easy to deal with. And, I regret giving them as hard a time as I did. I regret the lies that I told my parents, especially my mom. I regret, I regret some of the very hurtful, deliberately hurtful things I said to my dad. To give you an example, when my dad died of cancer, and actually when I told him that we got in a fight once when I was in high school, and I knew he had the cancer, and I told him that I hoped the cancer killed him. And now, in my defense, I thought he was going to beat it. My understanding was my parents had not told us how bad it was. My dad had kind of made hints to me, but every time I pressed him on it, he said, "Oh no, look, it's fine. I got it beat." And Yeah, I really regret that. I regret some other, hurtful things that I said to him. And, I don't want to make myself sound like too much of a monster here. It's actually, of the fights I've had with my dad, that is not the one I regret the most, because I remember like how pissed I was. And, honestly, he started the fight. But I mean, don't get me, it's not that I don't feel bad. It was horrible. And I'm sure he would, if he was here, he would say that was the worst thing I ever said. And probably objectively it was. But the thing is, there was another fight we had that, where I didn't say anything like that, but I felt like that's the one that I feel worse about. I can't even, it was, I don't know. It was kind of a misunderstanding on my part, but you know, so I mean, it's tough to really, I can't defend it. I don't want to defend it. I mean, I guess if you ask me, like, could I take back one action, like, what it would be the thing that, it would be the fight that I had with my dad, telling him that, I hope the cancer killed him. That's probably, my biggest regret, looking back. I do think that, as bad as it was, that it became clear to him that I didn't mean it. I was angry. It was wrong. I think that he had pretty much forgotten about it by the end, but I really, really feel bad and wish that I hadn't said it. The other things that I did, my best friend in high school, I was often, he wasn't even really my best friend. We kind of had like, sort of a Bart Simpson Milhouse relationship, where like I just like, we had become friends in grade school. Not I didn't want to become friends with him, but we had it's just the other kids were picking on him, so I stood up for him, and I guess he took that as me wanting to be friends. So like, he would start like wanting to hang out with me, invite me over to his house, and then over time we just kind of became friends and stuff. But I guess I always felt like I was better than him, and I often treated him just like absolute dirt, and real dirt, and I could be very nasty and very cruel to him, and I feel very bad about that, the whole relationship. Now, and by the time we got to high school, it wasn't as bad, and I don't think he like I don't know. I think he's out west now doing. I don't know how he's doing, but I don't think that he's got like any particular animosity towards me, although he probably should. The I think by the time we got to high school, it was more like I wasn't really being cruel to him anymore, and especially as he was becoming more independent and doing his own thing. But I was still kind of making fun of him, and just treating him like like a dork or a loser. And I don't really think I was being hurtful by the time I was in high school, because he was getting it from a lot of other people, but it just wasn't nice, and I shouldn't have done it, and it was wrong. And it built like this idea that, like, again, like I said, it got back to, like, I think a big part of it is because I felt like I was better than him, which I wasn't, at all. And, but, when you're young and stupid, you don't see those things. And that gets into like another thing that, I regret that I ever cared at all about the whole placed any value in the whole social status thing. And, like, I certainly see my high school was different. My high school was, I know a lot of you guys probably went to high schools that are more like in the movies, where like the jocks like all wear their like football jackets and eat together and stuff. Ours wasn't really like that. Now, we had very clear like cool kids and everybody else when I was in middle school, but in high school it wasn't really like that. There were just different groups, and there were certain groups that were considered cooler than others, and that would be largely determined by how attractive the girls they hung out with were. But it wasn't like the dorky kids in theater. They weren't envious of like, or looking up to guys like like me. Nobody thought I was cool, but I hung out with kids who would probably been regarded as cooler just because we hung out with the best looking girls. And but nobody was like envious of us or anything like that, like, again, like in the movies or anything. And as for like sports, some people played them, some people didn't, but it had nothing to do with you're cool or not. You certainly didn't wear your football jackets into school. That would have looked stupid. I mean, some guys might have, but it was, nobody cared at my school, like whether you played football or did any other sports or shit like that. In fact, basketball was so unpopular at my school that we did not even have tryouts for our varsity basketball team. If you showed up, you made the team, because they didn't have enough people to fill out the roster. And actually, there was no tryouts for our varsity football team either. So, Yeah, so but I regret that. The thing is, but insofar as it did matter, like, people were kind of like, within the groups, people were jockeying within for status, myself included. Um, I regret that. I regret that I considered myself less cool than some people and more cool than others. I regret the latter more. I think it's you know, it's the same type of delusion, considering yourself inferior and superior. But I feel more guilty about feeling like I was superior to people who I wasn't. Um, I don't really think you can describe anybody as superior or inferior. Again, like I said, it's the same type of delusion. But I regret that I bought into that and participated in it in any way, shape, or form. Um, Especially in middle school when it was more of a pecking order. So the thing is, like, when I look back on it now, if I was gonna like do middle school again or high school again, I really think I would have been like completely indifferent to all that stuff. On the because it's so unreal and it has like no meaning because they would always tell us that. I remember my dad would always tell me that he said like it's like being one of the cool kids. It doesn't mean anything because you get out of high school and it's just like nobody gives a shit anymore. And not only does nobody give a shit, but I feel like when I talk to people like from high school that they don't even remember. They and the but because high school is just it's such an artificial environment. It's so not real life. Like college is more like real life than high school is. And and uh and in college I was I wasn't participating in any social things anyway, so for me I guess for college I don't really have any regrets, but when I was in high school I did participate in that stuff. So that thing is like I think in high school I remember even I was talking to a family friend, an older guy, and I said like you know I said, and I was saying these other regrets in high school, like if I had to do things over again, what would I have done in high school differently? I would never have gotten in fights because the fights were always about some bullshit about somebody disrespecting me and me standing up for myself. Looking back now, if somebody was starting shit with me, I would have just been like, okay, it just like because I mean the thing is like I mean as long as they're not physically harming me, I don't really care. Like when do they because they're talking shit on me? Who gives a fuck? Let them talk, because it's just not worth it. I mean I've had my nose broken in 2 fights, and they both weren't. I mean like even if I had won those fights, it would have been like, so what, man? It's just dumb. And the I would never have gotten in fights. I would never have used drugs. Again, not that I was ever a big drug user, but I did use them, like I go out and to try to like I don't know. I thought it was cool, and when I say drugs, I just smoked some weed. I've smoked weed many times. I've actually only been high once. I'm like immune to it or something. It took like, and it was very hard to get high. It was kind of fun, but I mean, the thing is, I was a junior in high school at the time, but it was fun, but it was stupid. I mean, it was just like, whatever. I would never have drank. And that, I did get one arrest for underage drinking, which again, all this stress, having to like do things where I really could. I mean, I ended up getting off pretty easy and like, one arrest for underage drinking and that was it. That's in all my like, but I could have, something could have happened. I could have got hurt. I could have hurt somebody else. I could have gotten in a lot more trouble with my parents than I ended up doing. And the one arrest I did have, it was just super awkward and super uncomfortable. Like it was just really hard to, face my parents over it. And I wouldn't have done that again. So I would have said, stay out of all the social stuff. In fact, I would have done no socializing whatsoever in high school. That's how extreme I am. I would never have gone to a single party, never gone out with like anybody like at high school and stuff. I would have just kept to myself. I mean, I would have like been friendly with people in school, but I probably would have, just, eaten lunch alone and not really talked to anybody and not done anything because none of that shit matters, and I would rather like today, like if I'm at obviously where nobody's working in person right now, but the last time I was, I didn't eat lunch with anybody else from work because why would I? I'm seeing them all day long, so I'll go and eat lunch myself and read on the internet or some shit. And that's what I would have done differently in high school. I would have like done my homework or read something or just been by myself because I don't need to talk to people who I'm around all day long. That actually reminds me of one interesting thing about high school. I actually had the same lunchtime for every single semester of high school that I was in. We had lunch 1, lunch 2, and lunch 3, because and I had lunch 3 for every semester. I don't know how that ended up happening. Yeah, but anyway, the thing is, I mentioned earlier, I was talking about these things. Like, I wouldn't have gone to parties, wouldn't have drank, wouldn't have smoked weed or anything like that, and wouldn't have participated in social. So I was talking to an older friend, a friend of my family about this, like a couple years back, and he was saying, yeah, I'm feel the same way. I would have like done more clubs and stuff like that, and I was thinking like, no, that's not what it's about at all. No, I wouldn't have done more clubs or anything like that. It's just like, I'm not saying that like I would have not done those things because I should have done something else instead. Absolutely not. I'm saying I shouldn't have done those things because it was just a way, like literally me going home on Friday night and just staring at the walls of my bedroom. That would have been a better use of my time than going to a party. The and if I had to do it over again, I probably wouldn't literally stare at my walls, but I would do something like, I just wouldn't do it because it was just not interesting, and it's just a waste. Like I said, I could have ended up getting in a lot more trouble than I did, but it just wasn't worth it. So, and I think it's kind of like the opposite of what a lot of people would tell you, which is like, oh no, you really got to make the most of your high school years. They're the greatest time and shit like that. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, at the time, that's certainly what I thought. And I don't think that high school is necessarily hell, like some people say it is either. But like, I think that again, even if you're a Chad or a Stacy type, like, yeah, it might feel really fun at the time, but that you'll look back and kind of be like, well, that was all kind of pointless, and so yeah, that's the so I mean, it gets back to what I was saying. The regrets are all about things that I did do that I wish I hadn't, and really, there's like almost nothing other than that, other than other than that I would have, made some earlier career stations differently. And the only difference that would make is that I'd have more money now. So I guess that's kind of a big deal. But I'd still be the same. I'd still look the same. I'd still be single. I'd still be, would have, the same kind of health problems that I have. So it really didn't, it really just didn't change anything. Now, I mean, if it was something like, I'd had the opportunity to invest in Google as a startup and I missed that, then that would be a case where things would have been a lot different. But, I guess I'm kind of lucky in that the things that I didn't do really didn't make that much of a difference. But I think that's true for most people. I remember like this is kind of an old movie, so you guys probably haven't seen it, and it's not any good anyway. But this movie, The Dead Poets Society, where like he's not the main guy, but the sort of, I don't even know what to call him, sort of the sage type, Robin Williams, is telling the students that, like, he said, look how, like, full of hope these guys in these pictures are, these black and white pictures of students at this school from, like, the 1880s or something. Say, well, these guys are all dead now, so they're, like, they look so full of hope, but now they're all dead, so make sure that your life is extraordinary. And it's like, no, fuck that shit, man. No. You're extraordinary, whatever. None of that shit matters. Just like, when you get older, you're going to look back and not give a fuck about whether you were cool in high school. When you're 80, you're not going to look back and think that, oh, man, I really wish my life had been more extraordinary, because it doesn't fucking matter. It's all just, status bullshit, So, and this isn't me trying to say that life isn't important or anything like that. That's not how I feel. And I think I've made that clear in the past. But this is me saying that the things that they tell you to value, and whether you be a red pillar or a blue pillar or even a black pillar, that those things aren't really important either. Extraordinary is meaningless. Just do your thing. Let the chips fall where they may. The most important thing is that you live in a morally upstanding way. That's the thing, that's what's going to be, because nobody's going to care, what you accomplished, and you won't care. But, you need to be like, I guess you just want to go, and, when you do leave, you just want to know that you did the right thing. And that's the only thing that's going to have any lasting importance, over the course of eternity or whatever, or, after you're gone. All right, that's all for now. See you in the next.